I threw the first cup that changed my life on a foggy Tuesday in Santa Barbara. Low tide, gulls heckling the pier, salt air pushing through the cracked window of my studio behind the avocado stand on Milpas. I'm Aster Quinn, 29, ceramic artist, daughter of a librarian and a math teacher. I make functional art that wants to be held. Bowls like quiet moons, mugs with thumbprints you could fall into. Clay steadies me. It slows my breathing. It reminds me that if you keep your hands moving long enough, something honest will form. That morning, the clay wasn't fighting me. It rose obediently under my palms, a cylinder turning to a soft-shouldered cup. The wheel hummed, the kettle clicked. Somewhere, my cat, Bramble, committed war crimes against my bag of sponges. It was a regular, beautiful morning until my phone buzzed 3 times, then 4, then 8, like it had opinions. I ignored it, centered the next lump, pulled the walls, whispered to the clay like I always do. Stay with me. The buzzing turned into a call. I wiped my hands on my apron and picked up with my wrist. Hey, Aster, came a voice like a choir director's metronome, clean and practiced. It's Miles from Shoreline Gallery. Miles. Blue linen suits. Colgate smile. Handshake, like a paper cut. Hey, I said, heart skipping. Shoreline was my first gallery. My first will take 10 mugs and 4 bowls by the 15th. My first check that made me cry over a salad. Great news, Miles said. We moved your Sun After Rain series. All 12 pieces. I turned to look at the drying rack. It stood empty, a clean rib cage. That's fast, I said. Did they go to one collector? Sort of, he said, laughing. A boutique chain from LA bought them for a coastal hotel rollout. They loved the imported coastal charm. I blinked. The wheel kept spinning. Imported? I repeated, the word feeling like a pebble in my mouth. Marketing language, Miles said, breezy. Our clients respond to that vibe. Terracotta, sun-worn, Mediterranean imported. My name sat printed on the bottoms of those pieces. My initials pressed into the clay like a secret. I'm not imported, I said. I'm on Milpas, behind a guy who sells avocados for $1. We're talking adjectives, he said. Not legal designations. Something moved inside me, slow and hot. Do I get attribution? I asked. Do they know it's me? There was a pause. A small one, but enough. They bought them under our house brand, he said. Standard for bulk orders. We'll settle your cut on net 60. Congrats, Aster. You're moving units. He hung up before I could stack all the words I wanted to throw at him. Units. House brand. Imported. I stared at the wet cup on the wheel. It sagged, then collapsed into itself, a gray star imploding. Bramble jumped onto the table and sat right in a puddle of slip, like he knew I needed comic relief. It didn't work. I opened Instagram to distract myself, to scroll faces and bowls and glazes until my brain stopped hissing. A DM sat at the top of my inbox from a name I didn't recognize. Hi, Aster, it read. Big fan. Quick question, is this your mug? There was a photo attached, a sunlit breakfast table, a perfect croissant, and a mug I had thrown with my own hands. My glaze, my drips, the little constellation I carve below the handle when I'm thinking of the July night my mother taught me Orion. In the picture, a folded card read, Casa Loma Imports, Mediterranean mug, handmade feel. My stomach dropped so fast I could hear it land. Where did you get this? I typed, fingers shaking. She responded instantly. Hotel Esperanza in Venice. The boutique shop. $68 each. So worth it. It feels like a little beach. I wanted to be proud that my mug felt like a little beach. I wanted to be happy that someone spent money on something I made. Instead, my hands started to buzz in that awful way that isn't adrenaline, and isn't anger, and isn't fear, but all three, braided. I called Miles back. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Straight to voicemail. I grabbed my keys, still in my clay-crusted apron, face streaked with slip, and drove to Shoreline Gallery on State Street. The store smelled like sage and money. A girl with eyebrows like punctuation marks looked up. Can I help you? She chirped. I'm here to see Miles, I said. He's in a meeting, she replied, never looking away from the screen. I'll wait, I said, and sat on a bench made out of reclaimed surfboard wood, which mostly reclaimed my balance. I stared at a display. My vases were there, except they were tagged Loma Vista Imports, and priced like they were both a steal and a swindle. I turned one over, heart pounding. The bottom was sanded down, my signature erased to a smooth nothing. The door to the back office swung open. Miles appeared with a guy in a hat that cost more than my kiln repairs. They air-kissed. The hat left. Miles saw me and smiled like toothpaste. Aster, what a surprise, he said. Love the energy. A surprise, I echoed, like finding out my work was imported from a place called Here. He gestured toward his office. Why don't we chat? Inside, his desk was a war crime of neatness. There were invoices in a perfect stack, darling little paperweights holding down my blood pressure. Sit, he said, and did. And I didn't. You sold my work under a house brand, I said. You removed my signature. We sanded the bases for retail consistency, he said. You'd be surprised how much a signature distracts a hotel guest from a $20 latte. That sentence doesn't mean anything, I said. He laced his fingers, leaned back, and dropped into the voice of someone who had been given too much credit for being charming. Look, he said, we're lifting your brand. You're erasing it, I snapped. You're sending my name to the bottom of a landfill. He sighed, like I was exhausting. You need to think bigger, Aster. Your name is for the art world. Our clients buy a lifestyle. They want coastal, breezy, imported, the ocean in a cup. I am the ocean, I said. And even I wanted to laugh at myself for that. Except I didn't, because I was shaking. I've got to hop on a call, he said, standing. We'll pay you. Net 60. You're going to be fine. He reached for the stack of invoices. I reached faster. Those are private, he said, the first crack of something like panic in his voice. I flipped through them, line after line of Loma Vista Imports Mediterranean mug, with my SKU numbers faintly visible in the watermark. There were orders to hotels and influencers, and to a collector in Montecito, whose living room had been an Architectural Digest. Why is the wholesale price marked up from our agreed rate? I asked. You're getting a cut on top of the house brand? Aster, he warned, the way my mother said my name when I brought home a bat in my backpack. There was a memo clipped to one invoice. I pulled it free. Reclassify remaining artisan stock under imports for Q3 push. Emphasize handmade feel. Remove maker marks. My eyes burned. Do you know what my mother told me when she put a potter's wheel in our garage? I asked, voice steady and weirdly calm. She said, it's not about making things. It's about owning the story of the things you make. Miles rubbed his forehead. We're getting into philosophy, and I have a 2 p.m. You stole my story, I said, and you're selling it to people who think sand feels like sincerity. He stood, smiled again. The smile didn't match his eyes now. We didn't steal anything, he said. We created a market for you. You're welcome. I walked out before I did something that would make me a headline. On the sidewalk, the sky went from dull to sharp. I couldn't tell if I wanted to cry or scream, so I did both, quietly, into the collar of my apron, because Santa Barbara is small, and I'm not naive. Back at the studio, I locked the door, sat on the floor. Bramble head-butted my knee like he was trying to push me back into myself. Instagram pinged again. Another DM. A man this time. Hi, it read. We bought 2 Casa Loma Imports bowls at Hotel Esperanza because the clerk said they were sustainably imported. My wife is convinced they're yours. Can you confirm? He attached a photo of my bowl cradling lemons, with the signature erased and the glaze glowing like a lie. Something settled. Not in the way a storm settles. In the way a storm lines up, tight and organized. I wiped my face, stood, turned the wheel back on, and I set up my phone on a cheap tripod. I'd been flirting with the idea of streaming my process. People love watching clay become itself. They love the quiet, the trance, the hypnotic wobble smoothing into a shape. I'd posted little clips. 1,000 views here, 1,700 there. But this would be different. I plugged in the good mic, pulled my hair back. Bramble jumped onto the wedging table and settled like a loaf of bread. I went live. Hey, I said to the red dot. I'm Aster Quinn. I make things you can hold. Today, we're going to make mugs, and I'm going to tell you a story. The chat started small, then grew. Hearts floated up. Hi, Aster. Love your work. What clay body is that? Bramble. I began to center the clay. I've been told my work is imported, I said, hands wet, voice steady. I'm told you like the feeling of it without the name attached. Today, we're going to reattach the name. My phone buzzed off screen with a text from a number I didn't save. It was a photo of me leaving the gallery. My back, my apron, my messy hair. The message: careful what you say, Liv. Contracts go both ways. I looked at the screen, at the little red dot, at the chat blinking with, what happened, and, spill, and, we got you. I breathed in. Ocean, clay, cat and courage. Let's talk about invoices, I said. I reached for the folder I had grabbed without thinking in Miles's office, tucked against my ribs like a seatbelt. I slid the clip free. The chat flooded with exclamation marks. I laid the first invoice flat on the table, just out of frame, and then my screen went black. The screen went black like someone blew out a candle inside my phone. For a beat, I watched my own reflection in the dead glass clay on my fingers, eyes too bright. Then the chat audio kept chiming through the mic in little bursts, like distant fireworks. The stream was still alive somewhere. Just, not for me. Okay, I whispered. Okay. I jiggled cords, restarted the app, killed Wi-Fi, and tethered to my phone plan. The red dot came back like a stubborn heartbeat. Sorry, I said, breathless. Santa Barbara gremlins. The comments poured in. We thought they cut you off. Girl, don't scare us like that. Invoices? I laughed. The kind that keeps a scream from escaping. Where were we? I said. Right, names. I pulled the first invoice into frame, but kept the actual numbers blurred by the condensation ring from my tea. You could see the line items though. Mediterranean mug. Reclassify artisan stock. My faint watermark. Quick note, I said, hands steady over the clay. I'm sharing my experience, my records. No accusations. Just, what happened to me. My mom's voice in my head. Own the story. I centered the clay. The wheel hummed like a lullaby, trying to become a war song. Last month, I dropped off 12 mugs and 4 bowls to a gallery I've worked with for 2 years, I said. We had paperwork, we had a handshake, we had trust. I let that hang. 2 days ago, someone DM'd me this. I lifted my phone to the lens and flashed the hotel shop photo for a second, nowhere near long enough for a brand to cry copyright. Same glaze, same carve, no signature. The chat scrolled like a slot machine. Name and shame, call a lawyer. Oh my God, I have that hotel booked. The studio door rattled. My heart dropped in a neat vertical line. Hold that thought, I said, muting the audio and stepping off camera. Bramble beat me to the door, tail high. I cracked it. Jaya stood on the step, freckled, messy bun. Laptop hugged to her chest like a toddler. Best friend since we cheated together in 7th grade by sharing an eraser during a geometry test. She runs a small dev studio that makes websites for artists and nonprofits. She knows how to build a payment gateway and how to kill a rumor. Text me back next time, she said, stepping in without waiting. Your live went dark, and Twitter asked if you were kidnapped by coastal decor. I unmuted. Crisis averted, I told the chat. This is Jaya. She is smarter than me and also allergic to sage-scented capital. Jaya waved at the camera. Hi, Internet. She's underselling herself. She put her laptop down and leaned over the invoices like they were fossils. You can't show full docs, she mouthed. I nodded and slid the stack farther off frame, keeping my voice steady. So, here's what I'm going to do, I said. I'm going to throw a set. Then I'm going to stamp each piece with a new mark. A QR, a registry entry. If you own my work, really own it, you'll be able to scan it and see it born. See me throw it. See the kiln log, If you bought it under a house brand, no shade. But I want you to know whose hands you're holding. The chat erupted in little heart meteors. Provenance, queen of receipts. Please call it clay court. Jaya's eyebrows shot up. Clay court is good, she whispered. We'll call the series Clay Court, I said, smiling for the first time in 24 hours. Court as in the thing outside a courthouse, not inside it. I threw a mug, pulled the walls, pressed my thumb into the side for the dimple. The more I moved, the less I shook. Jaya perched on a stool, typing like the keys owed her money. I'm spinning up a Squarespace clone, she murmured. Simple CMS. Register your Aster. People can submit a photo, invoice, provenance. We'll verify against your logs. Friendly little badge for verified owners. I blinked. I love you. Obviously, she said. The comments shifted from outrage to action. I have 2 bowls from last year with your constellation below the handle. I'll register them. Hotel PPL will freak when they see the site. If they sanded your signature, that's vandalism, right? My phone pinged. Unknown number. A text bubble, with legal courage. Cease and desist, Miss Quinn. You signed NDA paragraph 4B, regarding pricing and internal documents. Remove your stream within 10 minutes, or we will pursue injunctive relief. My lungs went very quiet, like they were listening for a train. Jaya read over my shoulder and rolled her eyes so hard it was almost anatomical. NDA for pricing is standard, she said. NDA for your own authorship? Laughable. And you didn't show pricing. I didn't show anything, I whispered, suddenly aware of how loud my heartbeat sounded through the lav mic. Keep moving, she said softly. Tell your story. Don't name them. I nodded and turned back to the camera. Some folks don't want me talking, I said, light, almost breezy. The nice thing about clay is it teaches patience. We'll take our time. I pulled another mug, pressed in the constellation. Here's the mark my mom taught me, I said, carving the pattern. Because she told me to leave a sky under the handle, in case someone needed to hold a little night during the day. Comments came in with crying emojis and stars. The kindness hurt in a good way. I told them about my first kiln, how it lived in the garage between a stack of National Geographics and a broken lawnmower. I told them about my first trim tantrum, when a bowl I loved flew off the wheel and shattered in a way that was somehow instructive. I told them about the hand aches and the glaze that never behaved until it finally did one spring, and I cried alone in my studio because Blue had remembered it was water. While I threw, Jaya DM'd the woman from the hotel shop. She responded with a long paragraph and a photo of the receipt. No artist listed, just imports. Can we blur the total and show the line? I asked. Jaya nodded. Fair use commentary. Educational. We flashed it for 2 seconds. The chat grabbed screenshots like seagulls grabbing French fries. Okay, I said. Let's talk about reclaiming collectors. If you bought a piece labeled imported and you think it's mine, you can send me a photo. If it's mine, I'll send you a certificate and add you to the registry. No shade, no shame. We're just correcting a compass. Jaya pushed her laptop at me. A simple site, black and cream, bloomed on the screen. Aster registry, a little kiln icon next to verify. A big friendly submit button. The header, if you can hold it, you can trace it. You're disgusting, I said, teary. In a good way. Form collects photo, receipt, purchase date, where purchased, she said, tapping. Also has a whistleblower link for employees who want to talk off the clock. We went quiet in a reverent way. The chat was a river now. A chef in Ojai said he'd been pitched imported artisanal plates for his restaurant. A boutique buyer from Carmel admitted her store had house brands that looked suspiciously like local artists. A night shift desk clerk at a different hotel said there was a backstock room with imports boxes that smelled like fresh glaze. A DM slid in. Anonymous account. Profile pic, a cartoon otter. Worked at Shoreline for 6 mo, it read. They have a house brand, yes. It's run through a Shell LLC Loma Vista Imports. Same address as the gallery in the state registry. Check the Secretary of State database. Also, Miles's brother-in-law runs the hotel group's buying arm. Connect those dots. I swallowed hard. heat crawling up my neck. Jaya was already typing CA Secretary of State business search like a pianist in a storm. She found filings. She found addresses that rhymed. She found a board member with a last name that matched a hat in a hallway. "We can present this as a pattern," she whispered. "Not libel, pattern." Another text lit up my lock screen. Same number as before. "Last warning." I ignored it. The wheel sang. My hands remembered what they were for. "Here's the plan," I told the chat. "Every night at 7 p.m., I'll throw and I'll talk. I'll show you my process, and I'll show you my paperwork, not theirs. I'll publish a resource list for artists, contracts 101, how to protect your marks, how to spot the words that make you disappear. And we'll register every piece we can. If you're a buyer who wants the real thing, you'll know where to find it." Someone commented, "Call in a lawyer friend to explain vibes versus law." "My Aunt Maureen is an art lawyer," I said, grinning for the first time. "She's loud. She will bring snacks. I'll invite her tomorrow." Jaya snorted. "Aunt Mo with the bangles? Please do." I lifted the first finished mug, wet and clean and alive. I pressed a tiny QR stamp Jaya had 3D printed 2 years ago for a joke onto the base. Now it felt like armor. "We're making a different kind of proof," I said. "Not gatekeeping, gate opening." The chat hearts were ridiculous now. I placed the mug on the board, next to the invoice, with the T-ring halo. "My mom used to say, 'You don't have to wrestle the ocean, you just have to know the tide,'" I said. "The tide is changing." Someone pounded on the door. Not a knock. A flat, official pound. Bramble hissed. Jaya's head snapped up. "Keep rolling," she whispered, eyes wide. I walked to the door, phone in hand. Clay dried to a crust on my forearms like gauntlets. "Who is it?" I called. "Miss Quinn?" a man's voice said. "You've been served." I looked at the red dot. At the chat, which exploded in every language of "oh no." I opened the door. A process server in a polo held out an envelope with my name in a font that thought it was important. "Have a good day," he said, already turning to leave. I closed the door, stared at the envelope like it might emit smoke. Jaya mouthed, "We expected this." I slid a finger under the flap. Inside, a stack of paper. The first page in bold: temporary restraining order, prohibiting public disclosure of confidential information, defamation, and tortious interference. I exhaled so slowly I felt each rib unclench. Then I smiled small, sharp. I turned the first page around, held it to the camera, a long, taunting second, the title visible, the rest hidden under my thumb. "Looks like we have our next episode," I said. The lights flickered. The stream glitched, once, twice, and my phone buzzed with a new DM from the Montecito collector I'd seen on the invoice stack. "Call me," it read. "I think I bought your entire Sun After Rain series under a different name. I want to fix it." I didn't sleep that night. I just sat on my studio floor, surrounded by half-dry mugs and too many thoughts that wouldn't center no matter how hard I pressed. The process server's envelope lay open beside me like a wound that refused to close. Restraining order. Confidential information. Tortious interference. The kind of legal poetry meant to scare people who still paid off student loans. Jaya had fallen asleep on the couch with Bramble curled against her leg, the blue light from her laptop painting both of them ghostly. She'd been coding the registry until her eyes gave out. And me? I kept replaying the Montecito collector's message in my mind. "Call me. I think I bought your entire Sun After Rain series under a different name. I want to fix it." It was the first real crack in the wall, and I wasn't about to ignore it. By morning, the fog over Santa Barbara had that pale, lemony tint that means the day will burn too bright later. I made coffee, checked my phone. One missed call, same number. I called back before I could chicken out. "Miss Quinn?" The voice was low, older, precise. "This is Edward Dane. We haven't met, but I suspect you've seen my house in a magazine or two." I had. His coastal estate was all glass and light wood, and the kind of money that could buy the illusion of simplicity. "I believe your gallery misrepresented the origins of a collection I purchased," he continued. I paid a premium for authenticity. I was told they were imports handmade by a European cooperative. Imagine my surprise when I saw your stream. I tried to steady my voice. So, you're confirming those pieces are in your home right now? He exhaled, weary. Yes. 12 mugs, 4 bowls, all identical to your demonstration pieces, even the small carved stars beneath the handles. That hit harder than I expected. He saw the stars, the little constellations that weren't supposed to exist anymore. Mr. Dane, I said, those pieces are mine. They were sold without credit, and apparently, without honesty. That's why I'm calling, he replied. I want to make this right. Quietly, if possible. Quietly. The word sat between us like a stone. What does right mean to you? I asked carefully. He hesitated. It means I'll return the pieces to you if you'll allow me to commission replacements directly. And perhaps, his voice lowered, perhaps we can discuss what happens if I tell you how deeply this runs. Because, Miss Quinn, this isn't just your work, they're moving under false names. I froze. You've seen other artists' pieces? I've bought them, he said. At least half a dozen, different styles, all stamped as imports, all suspiciously local. Miles and his partners are laundering authenticity. It's a kind of art washing, erasing small makers to sell the illusion of global taste. My heart pounded. Can you prove that? I asked. Yes, he said, but not over the phone. If you want answers, come to my house this evening. Bring someone you trust. He gave me the address, then he hung up. By afternoon, Jaya was awake and already analyzing the TRO. They can't silence you for telling the truth, she said. Not unless you disclose trade secrets or lie. You didn't do either. They're banking on intimidation, I said, sipping coffee gone cold. Let's bank on stubbornness instead, she said. Where are we going? Montecito. She looked up. Of course we are. Edward Dane's house sat on a bluff above Butterfly Beach, the kind of place that made you whisper automatically. The driveway was long and cruelly perfect, and every wall inside smelled faintly of eucalyptus and money. He greeted us barefoot, wearing linen, as if the day belonged to him. You must be Aster, he said, extending a hand. And you must be the digital brain behind her revolution. Jaya smirked. Depends on who's asking. He laughed softly. Good. You'll need that suspicion. He led us to a sunroom lined with ceramic shelves. My shelves, my bowls, my mugs, each one gleaming, each one signed with nothing. He gestured for me to look. I bought these at a private showing through Shoreline's import collection portfolio. They claimed they came from Tuscany. I even got a charming certificate of authenticity printed on recycled linen paper. He handed me one of those certificates. The font was expensive. The lie was confident. Do you see the watermark? Jaya asked, holding it against the light. Same faint pattern as Aster's invoices. Dane nodded. The same designer. A company called Loma Vista Imports registered to the gallery's holding address. You were right to follow the money. I felt dizzy. How deep does this go? He looked out toward the ocean. Miles's operation spans 5 states. They've built a brand around fabricated provenance. Real art, erased artists. It's elegant in its cruelty. Why are you helping me? I asked. He smiled thinly. Because I invested in authenticity, not fraud. And because my daughter is your age, an artist too. I'd rather her world not eat her alive. Something inside me softened. Just a little. So, what now? Jaya asked. I'll return these pieces to you, he said, publicly, on record. You'll document it on your stream, but you'll need protection. Legal and narrative. You can't just go live and accuse them, you'll be buried in lawsuits. Jaya leaned forward. We can publish data instead. Registry timestamps, signature matches, digital provenance. No names, just proof. He nodded approvingly. And I'll provide the receipts of purchase under NDA at first. But they'll surface. Quietly. It was a deal made of strategy and caffeine. We left his estate as the sun began to bleed into the Pacific. That night, I went live again. No fancy intro. No music. Just me, clay under my nails, and truth under my tongue. Yesterday, I said, I was served a restraining order for telling my story. Tonight, I want to show you what happens when collectors listen. The chat blew up instantly. I lifted one of my old mugs into frame, the ones Dane had returned that morning, still warm from the Sunday. This piece was sold as Mediterranean imported. But it wasn't born overseas. It was born right here, behind a fruit stand in Santa Barbara. My hands made this, and someone tried to erase that. But the universe has a way of circling back. I turned the mug slowly. You see that faint sanding mark? That's where my signature used to be. We're going to refire it, glaze the wound, and stamp the truth back on. Jaya joined the frame, holding up her laptop. The registry is live. Over 300 verified owners have already checked their pieces. The data is clear: multiple galleries, same supplier label, same mark removal. 300, I repeated softly. That's 300 stories taken, but we're taking them back. The chat flooded with support. Artists, buyers, even a few anonymous employees. Someone posted, I work for Shoreline, they're panicking. Miles has been in meetings all day. I kept my tone calm. Let them panic. We'll stay grounded. As I spoke, I dipped the mug in glaze, a deep oceanic blue, the color of reclamation, and set it on the shelf to dry. This one, I said, will go to someone who bought a fake and came forward. Proof that truth can be refired, not destroyed. Jaya pointed to her screen. Trending again. Number Clay Court. And, Miles just posted a statement. What kind of statement? I asked. Defensive, she said, scrolling. Claims the house brand was a collaborative design inspired by multiple artisans. Says, no single artist owns the work. I laughed, short and sharp. He really said that out loud? The chat erupted with disbelief and anger. Here's what we'll do, I said. Tomorrow, I'll show you exactly how I make the sun after rain glaze, step by step. The ratios, the process, everything. Because authenticity isn't a brand. It's repetition. It's fingerprints. I could feel the energy rising again. This time not just outrage, but momentum. Then Jaya's screen pinged. A new email, she frowned. It's from Miles, she said. Subject line. Cease operations immediately. What's in the body? She opened it, read silently. Her face shifted anger, then shock. It's not just a threat, she said. He attached a PDF, internal memo. Looks like he meant to CC someone else, not us. What memo? She turned the laptop toward me. It was a directive from the Shoreline Executive Board, dated 2 days ago. Initiate damage control. Offer settlements to affected artists. Scrub internal drives of provenance data. Archive backups under Loma Vista parent shell in Nevada. Thank you, Fains. I looked up at her. He sent this to us? She nodded slowly. By mistake. The chat didn't know yet, but my heart did. This was the crack we'd been waiting for, the one that could bring the whole structure down. I ended the stream early, promising an update soon. When the camera shut off, the silence felt like static. Jaya, I said, this isn't just about me anymore. She nodded. Then let's make sure the world sees what they tried to erase. Outside, thunder rolled over the Pacific, rare, electric, impossible to ignore. And inside, I smiled for the first time in days. Because storms, like truth, always start with pressure. The thunder that rolled over Santa Barbara that night didn't sound real, too cinematic, too perfectly timed. But it was. The kind of storm that makes the air taste like metal and promise. Jaya and I sat on the studio floor, the glow of her laptop painting our faces ghost blue. The memo from Miles, the one he'd accidentally emailed us, sat open on the screen like a confession no one meant to sign. Initiate damage control. Offer settlements to affected artists. Scrub internal drives of provenance data. He'd practically written the headline for me. I can't believe he sent this to us, Jaya said, whispering even though it was just rain outside. I can, I said. Arrogance makes people sloppy. We read through every line, every attachment, internal communications, draft press statements, and one especially bold email chain labeled Artist Rebrand Strategy. It listed names, at least 15 of them. Local artists. I recognized some people who had booths at the Saturday craft market, who taught workshops next to mine, who still believed in Shoreline Gallery's handshake. Jaya rubbed her temples. They were all selling through Shoreline, and all erased, I said. The guilt hit me hard. I'd been so focused on reclaiming my story that I hadn't realized how many others were trapped in the same silence. This can't just be about me anymore, I whispered. It isn't, Jaya said. It's about every artist who's ever been told their work looked better, without their name attached. By morning, the storm had cleared, leaving the air scrubbed clean. The world outside smelled like wet earth and eucalyptus. I brewed coffee and watched the kiln cool. Steam curled from its metal lid like quiet anger. The plan formed between sips, dangerous, but clear. We'd take the memo public. But not as drama, as evidence. We'd blur the sensitive data, redact private info, and present it alongside testimonies from the other artists. No accusations, just truth. To do that, we needed them. The others. Jaya sent messages. I sent more. Some ignored us, some didn't believe it, but a few responded within hours. The first was a woman named Camille Doss, a sculptor known for delicate ceramic shells that looked ready to breathe. She arrived that afternoon in paint-streaked overalls and disbelief. They told me my pieces didn't fit the market, Camille said, pacing my studio. Then last month, I saw nearly identical sculptures tagged as handcrafted imports in a boutique in Palm Springs. I thought I was crazy. I showed her the memo. Her face went blank, then furious. So, they sanded my signature too, she said softly. They told me it was just to make the bases smooth. She pulled a small sculpture from her tote bag and flipped it over. The sanded patch glared like a scar. That was the moment I realized this wasn't an accident, it was policy. By nightfall, 4 other artists had joined us: 2 potters, a glassworker, and a painter whose work had been reinterpreted for a hotel lobby series. We sat in a circle, the studio smelling of clay, rain, and indignation. This is bigger than art, said Matteo, a ceramicist from Ventura with hands like tree roots. They're laundering identity, turning authenticity into a marketing angle. Jaya was at her laptop, assembling the visuals. Screenshots, timelines, blurred invoices. The memo, proof without poison. We were building a story that couldn't be dismissed as emotional. I'll go live tomorrow, I said. But not alone this time. We'll all speak. Calm, clear, facts only. Camille nodded. They used our silence as material. Let's take it back. The next day, at exactly 7 p.m., we went live from the studio. The title read, Clay Court, Episode 4. The Maker's Return. The chat was enormous. Thousands watching. Reporters, artists, curious strangers. I stood in front of the camera, my apron stiff with dried glaze, my heart beating like the wheel under my hands. Hey everyone, I began. It's Aster. Last night we found something that changes everything. I turned the camera slightly. Behind me, the other artists stood together. Camille, Matteo, the painter Lila, the glassworker Tomas, and Jaya at her laptop, our anchor. We've confirmed that multiple artists' works were sold through the same house brand, reclassified, renamed, and resold as imports. We have documentation, invoices, and statements from collectors who purchased under false provenance. I gestured to Jaya. She displayed the redacted memo on screen. The chat exploded. Here's what this means, I continued. We're not suing, we're not slandering, we're simply showing you what's real. And we're launching a cooperative registry owned by us, run by us to verify every independent artist's work in this region. Camille stepped forward. They took our names, she said, voice trembling but strong. But they can't take the way we make things. You can erase a signature, but you can't erase a handprint. The comment section filled with hearts, applause emojis, and one simple message that kept repeating, "We see you." I felt tears slip down my wrist, hidden by clay dust. Then, Jaya's screen pinged. A notification. A new upload. Miles just posted a response video, she said quietly. The chat begged to see it. We hesitated, then Jaya played it in a small frame on the stream. There he was. Miles. Polished. Smiling. Studio lighting too perfect. He looked into the camera and said, "We are deeply saddened by the misinformation spreading online. Shoreline Gallery has always supported artists. Our collaborations are legally sound and transparently managed. We value authenticity and will continue to work with talented makers like Miss Quinn when cooler heads prevail." Then he smiled wider. "Until then, we ask the public not to be misled by emotional narratives." The video ended. My jaw tightened. "Emotional narratives?" I repeated. "You mean lived experiences? You mean documentation? You mean our names?" I turned to the camera. "Let's be clear," I said. "Emotion isn't the opposite of truth, it's the evidence of it." The chat erupted again, support pouring in, hashtags multiplying, journalists requesting interviews in real time. And then my phone buzzed. A text. From an unknown number. "Check your back door." Every muscle in my body froze. Jaya read the look on my face before I said anything. She muted the stream. "What is it?" I showed her the text. "Could be nothing," she said, voice low. "Or someone's trying to spook you." I walked slowly to the back door. The rain had started again, soft and secret. When I opened it, the night air smelled like wet metal. There, on the stoop, sat a box. Small, cardboard, no label. My name was written on it in blue ink. I looked at Jaya. She shook her head. "Aster, don't." But I was already crouching. I lifted the lid carefully. Inside was one of my mugs, my glaze, my signature still intact, and a folded note that said, in tidy handwriting, "You're not the only one who kept receipts." Beneath that, an embossed business card. "Edward Dane." Only this time, written across the back in pencil, were 5 words. They're not just erasing artists. The lights flickered, once, twice, and the sound of a car door slamming echoed from the street. I looked up at Jaya. Her face had gone pale. "Lock the door," she whispered. I did. Because suddenly, this wasn't just about clay anymore. It was about whatever came next. We didn't sleep. Jaya double-checked every lock while I stared at the mug Edward left, turning it over in my hands again and again. My mark was still there, crisp, untouched, but the glaze had a hairline fracture running down one side, like it had been split open just enough to hold a secret. The note haunted me. "They're not just erasing artists." "What else could that mean?" Jaya asked, scrolling through databases like a hacker in a crime show. "Money laundering?" I guessed. "Counterfeit imports?" "Maybe both." She chewed her thumbnail. "The gallery's shell company could be a front for moving money, not just art. Real art, fake provenance, clean the cash, sell the story." It sounded paranoid, but so did all of this until it kept proving true. The next morning, I called Edward Dane. He answered on the second ring, voice low. "You got the package." "Yes," I said. "You said they're not just erasing artists. What did you mean?" There was silence. Then, "They're using our purchases, the imported collections, to inflate asset portfolios. It's fraud on a corporate level. They import art, overvalue it for insurance and tax purposes, and erase the original makers so no one can trace it back. It's all hidden under the gallery's house brand." My chest tightened. "You have proof?" "I have documents, and I'm not the only collector who's noticed, but if you go public with this, they'll come after you harder than before." I looked at my hands, cracked, clay-stained, trembling. "They already are." He hesitated. "Then let me help. I'll leak what I can through legal channels, but you need to stay safe." I hung up, my mind racing. Fraud, erasure, exploitation, art as currency, artists as collateral. The story had changed shape again, bigger, sharper, far beyond Santa Barbara. By evening, the storm had rolled out to sea, but tension hummed in the studio like static. Jaya paced. "If we drop this wrong, they'll bury us in court filings. We need to go through journalists." Someone credible. She was right. So I called Ava Lynn, an investigative reporter who'd once covered the art forgery scandals in LA. I'd met her at a festival years ago. She'd bought one of my mugs, the first real sale that made me feel like an artist. When I explained what we'd found, she didn't even hesitate. I've been hearing whispers about Loma Vista imports for months, Ava said. If you've got documents, I'll verify them. But Aster, this won't stay small. Once it's out, you can't take it back. I smiled bitterly. Neither can they. We went live one last time that night. The chat was waiting, anxious, loyal, buzzing with theories. This is our final episode for now, I told them. We've uncovered more than just artistic theft. It's systemic. It's financial. And it's wrong. Jaya shared our statement, carefully worded, factual, and backed by redacted documents. We announced that a journalist was investigating, that the story would soon reach daylight. Then I lifted the cracked mug Edwards and said, "This piece is broken, but it's still mine." That's the thing about fractures. They catch light. The chat flooded with hearts, solidarity, donations for legal defense, and words like truth and fire. But beneath the rush of support, I could feel something darker stirring, like the calm before another kind of storm. When the stream ended, we sat in silence. Then Jaya's phone buzzed. Her eyes widened. "It's Edward," she said. "He's in trouble. Someone broke into his house." We bolted upright. "Is he okay?" He said they took the files. Everything. I felt the world tilt. "We're next," she nodded. Then we finish this now. Then we finish this now. It all came down to one decision: hide or expose. We chose the latter. At dawn, Jaya sent the full file package, invoices, memos, screenshots, artist testimonies, to Ava Lynn's encrypted inbox. Ava confirmed receipt within minutes. "Once it's verified, it goes public," she said. "Hold tight." But holding tight wasn't in my nature anymore. I drove to the shoreline, parked across from the gallery, and watched the morning sun climb the windows. Shoreline Gallery looked calm, composed like a lie that hadn't been caught yet. Inside, I saw Miles. Suit. Smile. Pretending the world hadn't shifted under him. My hands shook as I opened Instagram Live. Not planned. Not prepped. Just raw. "Good morning," I said to the camera. I'm standing outside Shoreline Gallery, the place that erased my name. I won't go inside, but I'll show you what happens when truth finally dries. People flooded in thousands. My notifications exploded. "This isn't about anger anymore," I continued. "It's about accountability. About artists knowing their worth and collectors knowing their hands aren't clean if they ignore where their art comes from." I turned the camera toward the ocean. They took our signatures. We took back our stories. Then I held up Edward's cracked mug to the light. And sometimes, the cracks are the most honest part. Behind me, the gallery door opened. Miles stepped out, sunglasses on, pretending to be casual. "Still live streaming lies, Aster? Still selling them?" I shot back. He froze, caught between confidence and collapse. Then he smiled, the kind of smile that had fooled me once. "You've destroyed your career," he said quietly. I smiled back. "No. I rebuilt it." Before he could reply, Jaya called. "It's out!" she shouted through the speaker. "Ava published. Front page, The Imported Lie. How Shoreline Gallery Laundered Art and Identity." The chat erupted. The crowd on the sidewalk started filming. Miles' face drained of color. The police cars showed up an hour later. Not for me. Days blurred after that. Ava's article went viral. Interviews, statements, denials, arrests. The fraud ran deep: multiple shell companies, fake invoices, tax evasion, stolen identities of artists whose work had been exported under made-up foreign names. Shoreline Gallery closed within a week. Loma Vista imports vanished overnight. And artists across the coast started stamping their work with the registry seal. We'd built a small mark shaped like a rising tide. 2 months later, I walked into a new gallery downtown, the Clay Court Collective. Camille was curating. Mateo was teaching workshops. Lila's paintings hung above the entry. Jaya had turned the registry into a cooperative network. I placed Edward's mug on a shelf in the front window fracture filled with gold, kintsugi style. The plaque beneath it read, "For everyone who ever signed their name and was told it didn't matter." A young woman approached me, holding one of my new mugs. I smiled. "One of many." She grinned shyly. "I'm a potter too. Watching your lives got me through art school. I just wanted to say, thanks for fighting back." I swallowed hard. "Keep your name on your work," I said. "Always," she nodded, eyes shining. When she left, I looked around the gallery, the shelves, the art, the laughter echoing from the back room, and realized this was what reclaiming looked like. Not revenge. Restoration. I pressed my palm against the window, sunlight warming the gold seam of the cracked mug. The storm was over. The tide had turned, and the clay like me had finally hardened into something stronger than before.